The Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves are about to face off in the Western Conference Finals, and I think it's safe to anticipate that this series will most likely be pretty insane. Game 1 will mark just the second time that these teams have faced off against each other in the playoffs, and what better way than the clash of the young superstars and future faces of the NBA, Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards. In the regular season, the Timberwolves won 3 out of the 4 matchups. However, every one of these meetings occurred before the PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford trades, which we all know transformed the Mavericks into a completely different team. Additionally, Kyrie had only played in 1 of these games, Luka only played in 2, and Dereck Lively also only played in 2. The one win they secured was the only time Luka and Kyrie were playing alongside each other. So the Mavs have proven that even with a significantly worse roster, as long as Kyrie and Luka are playing, they are capable of beating this Minnesota team. Now, I'm not saying that this game is going to directly reflect the series or anything like that, but with the Mavericks' improved roster, they definitely stand a better chance against the Timberwolves than in the regular season. But regardless, I still think the Timberwolves are the favorites to win the series. I mean, they did just beat a very formidable foe, the defending champion Denver Nuggets. Anthony Edwards has been playing fantastic these playoffs, averaging nearly 30 points a game, and he's definitely not alone. The triple big rotation of the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to force Dereck Lively and Daniel Gafford to play even bigger than they did against the smaller Thunder. With size being such a factor, defensive ability is going to be directly affected. The Timberwolves led the league in defensive rating for the majority of the regular season. However, just like Minnesota, the Mavericks had the best defense for about the last 20 games of the season. Both of these teams have run through the playoffs backed by a defensive mindset that has allowed them to gain an edge over their opponents. However, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are known as 2 of the most prolific scorers in the NBA, especially in isolation. And if we've learned anything from the Thunder series, doubling them will result in a loss, hand-delivered from the X factors of the team. Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington had emerged as reliable support pieces around Luka and Kyrie in the OKC series. PJ recording 3 games with over 20 points, and Derrick Jones Jr. notching 2 consecutive games with 19-plus points. Not only were these 2 wings scoring, but they also served as capable perimeter defenders, which is definitely going to be needed against a team like the Timberwolves. And in Minnesota, Jaden McDaniels is probably the biggest difference maker because he is a true 2-way X factor. In Games 6 and 7 of the Nuggets series, his ability to knock down shots at an incredibly high percentage gave the Wolves a much-needed offensive boost, especially in Game 7, as Anthony Edwards was seeing multiple bodies thrown at him and struggling from the field. And on the defensive end, Jaden has served as the primary defender on various perimeter players, navigating through screens and locking up in isolation. Assuming matchups, Jaden will most likely be on Luka and Ant-Man will be on Kyrie. 2 great defenders on 2 great scorers. However, given the fact that the Mavs run tons of on-ball screens for Luka and Kyrie, I think the effectiveness of Minnesota's bigs on potential switches will be the biggest deciding factor. For example, getting a switch with Rudy Gobert on Luka or Kyrie can draw the reigning DPOY out and away from the paint, eliminating his highest valued skill, interior defense. If a case like this occurs, the role of the secondary big expands significantly more. In this case, it would be either Cat or Naz Reid. This switch allows Luka and Kyrie to play against a mismatch and away from their primary defenders. But if a switch doesn't occur and Rudy is playing in drop as he often does, it's basically open threes for Kyrie and Luka, which we've seen a lot in the Mavs' regular season win.
Front by 1, 3-pointer, yes sir!
But the same goes for the Mavericks as well, except surrendering the switch may not play out as well for them as they don't have a secondary big that can still roam the paint with the other big being drawn out on a switch. But who knows what they'll actually do. I could also see the Timberwolves, specifically Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, trying out a similar strategy to what they did for Jamal Murray, the whole full court pressure to wear out Luka. A strategy that many other teams have tried before, but with Kyrie alongside Luka in the backcourt, all of the burden is not on just Luka. So theoretically, Luka won't wear out, or at least not as fast. Some key things to note is that Tim Hardaway Jr. continues to be a gigantic question mark for the Mavs. If he's consistently hitting shots and playing the role of sixth man properly, the Mavs offense becomes almost unguardable. And Luka and Kyrie's defense has taken a significant positive leap since the start of the playoffs, so counting them as non-defenders is just not accurate at this point. As for the Timberwolves, Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a solid two-way player off the bench will need to play the same way he did in Game 2 against the Nuggets for him to be effective in this series. But with everything else aside, these stars will be stars at the end of the day, and I think it will ultimately come down to how well the role players perform. But who do you guys think is taking this series, and how many games do you think it will take? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.
After all that,